It's the ability to have a long-term relationship with a client and execute multiple transactions in any category, in any location. But it's the consistency of the client. I'd ask you guys about that recent deal, nice deal you guys did. And you told me the story, like, hey, it's a long story. The people, it was about the people, right? You hung in there, you dug in there, you did it based upon relationships, but you got to come at some point with skills. You apply skills in relationship and you get it done.
We got a retail giant, I would say, on the podcast today. And one thing, Gene, I've noticed about you, when you come into the office, you have that presence about I don't know what it is, it's an energy, but we all know when you're in the office, because it's like, oh, Gene's here, and you get around the office and you seem to, I can feel the energy pick up when you walk in. So I feel like that's a really, how do you do that?
I think it's the 10 pounds I put on. Just carry more weight around.
You have a natural charisma, obviously, that, you can't teach, but from your time in the business, I mean, do you feel like it's changed a lot from the beginning to now, or do you think that the fundamentals are more or less still the same?
Oh, I started off this business with very little confidence. I graduated college and I sort of went right into the business. A friend of mine was in the business a year before me. He invited me to spend a day working with him out on Long Island. And I was still a senior at the University of Maryland. I spent a few hours with him. We went to some buildings, we drove around, we had a good time. I'm like, oh, I like this. I like the outdoor nature of the business. And, I started after graduation in the summer of 1986. And I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. I was paid $200 a week on a draw. And after 6 months, the guy cut me off the draw. And I was done. And my dad said to me, he said, son, feast the famine. That was his words to me about real estate. I had a job working at Bloomingdale's. This was a job I had interviewed for at college in their finance department, which was really, I discerned to be processing credit cards back at that time. Credit card applications, literally.
Okay.
So no, I'm not commuting it to New York City to do that. And I wanted the outdoor nature of the business. So I did not have confidence at all. I developed it through practice. I developed it through making mistakes. I developed it through mentorship and making deals. Then I went on, several years after school, I went back to school. I was an early adopter of the NYU Masters in Real Estate program. It was called the Silverstein Institute at that time. It's the Shack Institute today. And I got the education in fundamental economics and mathematics that I didn't get in my undergraduate education because I was a political science major thinking I was going to go to law school. So I got, over time, you build more confidence, you do more deals, you see more things. And I came to work in New York City in 1993 formally. So I was like 5-6 years before that out on Long Island. Then I started to go to NYU. So I was coming into the city. It was May 93 when I officially started my career in retail real estate in New York. And you build confidence. And I really think at this point in my career and my life, I feel I have so much more ahead of me. And I think that my skill set is really polished. And, if you have a polished skill set through experience and practice, and you continue to really like what you do and, combine that with your relationships and contacts and the people you work with, that's what makes it fun. So it took a long time to get here. But I will tell you, like anyone else, I made mistakes. I was sweating over mistakes I've made. I thought I'd get fired for mistakes I've made. And sometimes, they're not all visible mistakes, but I should have done that differently, or I shouldn't have said that, or why did I miss that? And that's the body of accumulated work. And I think anyone who, doesn't recognize those things or doesn't see them, they're lying to themselves.
Yeah. It was different back then as well, right? I mean, it was very much a sink or swim atmosphere, I feel like, right? You were probably put into you said you got a draw, so I guess that was something. But in terms of the competitive nature of it, was it like what we think it is, that like old guys guarding all the relationships and you were just
I think it's the same way today. I think it's exactly the same way that you guys feel it and your peers feel it. You come in, if you want to be in real estate brokerage, commercial real estate brokerage, it's sink or swim. There's always people ahead of you in the curve in terms of relationships and time in the business. I don't think it's never not sink or swim. I think that again, it's one of those things. If you don't think it's sink or swim, you're fooling yourself, because you got to learn to be a producer. I came in, there was always established relationships, but I think younger people have a more competitive advantage than when I graduated school because you didn't have any technological lift to what you did. You had a fax machine, and then the desktop computer came along, and if you figured out how to use a computer, you had another step, but that was so incremental at that time. I will tell you the most transformative piece of our business was the invention of the mobile cellular phone. Hands down.
More than the
And
internet.
I'm talking stuff that was like you see it in the movies, like Gordon Gekko sized stuff that cost thousands of dollars. And my partner and I, in 1988, went out and bought what's called a Panasonic Transportable. They cost $1,750 each. And it was $1 a minute to talk. $1 a minute, but you only talk to other people like on cell phones, right? And my partner says to me, he says, I never could see them getting any smaller. I say this to this guy to this day. We laugh about it. But I think the fundamentals are the same for anyone entering the business today as far as competition.
Yeah. But the phones sort of sped up the communication and get things done quicker. Is that what you're alluding to?
Well, it allowed you to do something. When I started, you literally went to a payphone, dropped 10 cents or a quarter in the phone, whatever it is, or you had a calling card, like an MCI. You could punch in your numbers, or you had to go back to the office, and you'd get on your desk like paper messages of people who called because they didn't. Most companies, I was starting a small company, they had one phone number, and the receptionist would pick up the phone. Hello, Prime Sites. No, Gene Spiegelman's out. I'll take a message, and they write it in the book, and you come back to your desk and you have these like stack of papers that you made phone calls.
It's kind of nice though.
It's hard for us to imagine like today with our phones so communicative all the time. It's like just a different world. But
that kind of simplicity must be nice though, right?
Yeah.
I know you would like that.
I would like that. Yeah. So you had a good run at Cushman. You were there 18 years.
18 years.
Wow. How was that experience? How would you sum that up?
I think it was my best part of my professional career. I enjoy what I do today, but it was transformative for me.
Yeah.
And
it's a great company.
It was a wonderful career. I loved it. I was Cushman Wakefield through and through. And my relationships were with right up to John C. Cushman III, Johnny Three Sticks, the late Johnny Three Sticks. His grandfather, Clyde Cushman, started the company.
Wow.
It was a wonderful experience. It was transformative, but more so what they allowed me to do. And you guys can appreciate this being, continental guys, but not really continental guys because you're offshore of the continent. But in I think it was in November of 2000, Arthur Morante, the then CEO of Cushman & Wakefield, who worked with Bruce Moser to bring my team on board, which really fundamentally started their retail services business, said, hey, there's this conference in France. It's, I don't know, something with an M, BAPIC as it's called. And we have this partnership with Healy & Baker in London, which was a big commercial real estate firm. And they'd like someone from the US to go. Would you like to go? I'm like, would I like to go? Of course I like to go. And they put me on a plane, sent me to France, to Cannes, to go to this conference. And that was like the beginning of this world that opened up to me. And I was like, wow, this is great stuff. I'm living it up. I flew on a plane,
nice.
but not first class. But I'm at this, having these dinners and drinking and having fun and like doing business. And like, this is a whole different world. I was in London in 1985. I did do an internship during college, which very few people did at that time. So I did have some experience being, out of the country and doing something different. But that was the beginning of this career that was very successful as a producer. Then I was privileged to work with some of the best brokers in the industry, help grow a global business. And eventually I led retail services for the Americas from 2014 to 2017. That was sort of the culmination of my career. A great job. I learned so much, but that job almost killed me. That was too much, too many people, too many things.
Yeah. Right.
It was a great career.
So within our world, you have sales, right? Within commercial brokerage, there's sales and there's leasing, right? High level. How did you end up going into the leasing side of it?
So I gravitated to the leasing side because my friend who had introduced me to business was doing industrial leasing on Long Island. So I just happened into that. but no one ever said to me, you have a choice to be involved in commercial real estate sales or investment sales. It was never explained like that.
Okay.
You know, now it's a much more sophisticated business, and it has a much more professional demeanor to it.
And back then they were a bit more generalist, so they were doing leasing and sales, some brokers.
People, but yeah, there were folks who did both, but I mean, excuse me, it was still disciplined in the sense that there were people who did both, but you had people who sold property and people who leased property, but it was never given to me as a choice. Oh, would you like to try investment sales? So once you go down a road and you gain professional expertise, it's like a diesel engine, you know, buses at the side of the road. They don't turn them off. You just get hot. You keep going.
Yeah.
You keep going. And you know, if I speak to people today, this is really, I think, speaks to what you guys do. I say to them, the deal cycle for leasing is longer. The deal cycle for investment sales is shorter. Client development could take years in anything, right? You guys develop, it takes years to do, but the deal cycle is shorter. And then when you close on an investment sale, you get paid. Leasing, you wait another year, 18 months to get paid. And it's a different type of deal cycle. And for leasing, particularly retail leasing, the cycle for payment and deal closing has gotten longer because of permitting times, possession times, free rent commencement times. So it's become this much longer cycle. And I think that gets frustrating, particularly for young professionals, because show me the money. It takes a long time to see the actual cash flow until you develop a pipeline.
Right.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, you could get a young broker come in at doing investment sales, slam a deal quickly, get a big check, and thinks it's going to last forever. So it's kind of like a
young Mitch Flaherty.
But there's definitely like a longer delayed gratification in leasing business. It sounds like, which is maybe not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
When we started in this business, when I started this business, there was this like myth, like, oh, like you're a real estate broker, oh, make a deal, take a year off, come back.
Yeah, no,
it's like I don't know where that.
That's why I got into the business.
I don't know where that ever came
I know, it's
from.
ridiculous.
You never stop. You're like you're a shark. You just don't stop swimming.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Got the black eyes.
where did that ever come? Because if you ever like pause to get back in, and to be honest, like COVID was that pause, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, sudden we're out of business, but like I never heard of anything like that, and I really never saw anyone behave like that. You know, the top producing real estate brokers. I don't even care real estate brokers. Anyone who's in commercial real estate, you're a top producer, you're a developer, whatever you are, you keep going. You don't stop. You take a vacation, take some more time off in the summer, whatever. But I'll see you in 7 months. I closed the deal. So that was not a thing. But I do like the investment sales aspect of the closing. But every business has its ebbs and flows. Yeah. You guys just went through a little bit of that market cycle, though you're killing it, you know. But leasing has its ebbs and flows. I always said the office brokers made the most money.
Really?
Yeah, they made the biggest deals to this day.
Are they a little bit more like investment banking at that level? Like when you were talking, say, Eastdil, or when you were talking like Adam and Doug and CBRE, are they more like bankers than brokers?
They're thugs in suits.
Yeah. They're street rats as well.
No, I think that's another, myth that they like to sort of, emulate. Now, I started in the business. Suit, tie, lace up Oxfords, no tassels. Those were office slippers, they were called. And, braces coming back at it into the early 90s, suspenders, like real, like
the Wall Street kind of stuff.
Wall Street stuff, right? Yeah. And you were buttoned up. You always buttoned up. But the office brokers is tough as nails. It's a super, super competitive business. And I always felt to be in that business, you had to be connected. You had to be part of a country club. You had to play
old
golf.
school.
And none of that was me. And I thought retail was much more egalitarian, that retailers, and what I learned is they were always looking for real estate. They were constantly looking for real estate, particularly in the the granddaddy years of a retail expansion starting in the early 90s. You called up a retail, they picked up the phone and said, hey, what do you got for me? Because they were always looking for real estate. And it's a broad market. It's everywhere, right? You aren't waiting for a lease to expire. We just signed the lease, call me back in 9 years. oh, we need another store.
Mm.
So it was a much more, there's much more liquidity to the
Oh.
business. And you didn't need to be in the country club to do retail real estate. I was a kid from Brooklyn.
Right.
No one ever took me to a country club.
So you didn't need connections. It was just about how hard you could work and then make connections you could break in.
I think you always need connections, and I think if you had connections in certain ways, it would accelerate your, your streamline your process. But you could do it without connections.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting business to us because we come from a building sales background, right? That's all we know. So when we joined RIPCO last year, it was eye-opening just to see how there's this whole other side of the business that we, still are learning a lot about, but it seems very active. It seems very transactional. It's very complementary actually to the investment sales business. I can't tell you how often we can fire over a setup for a vacant piece of retail that we're selling, and some of our colleagues can price it up with real-time market data about what kind of tenant is looking there, what type of rent it would pay, what the kind of TI package would be required to do it. And that's just really helpful, I think, as a sales broker, because now you can go back and smartly discuss it with your client or with the owner and have the retail guys coupled in on the conversation and maybe make a referral business, or more importantly, just do right by the client and give them a full service experience. So that's one pretty cool thing I've seen at RIPCO since joining.
I think in terms of real estate fundamentals, investment sales, and leasing retail real estate are similar in the sense that leasing office space is fungible, right? You could say, hey, I'm going to come down 38th Street and we're on the fourth floor of 325. And hey, what's the office space price at the fourth floor across the street? And it's very fungible. And you have this sort of competitive set. And you walk into a box like this. You don't have to ask about zoning. You don't have to ask about, complicated landmark issues on signs and other factors and how much electricity and do we have to build my own HVAC? None of that works in this environment. You don't have to do it. In retail and in selling properties, you got to know about zoning. You got to know about use groups. You got to know about mechanicals. You got to know about loading. You got to know about landmarks commission. You got to know about the loft board. All these things that if you're selling property, you want to be a good sales broker. You want to be educated on your product, and you want to make sure the buyer, understands what they're getting. And in retail leasing, you're going to get involved with these same sets of, jurisdictional, logistical, legal, physical, mechanical issues to get a deal done. And I think that's where our businesses are very similar, and where the office business, and I don't want to oversimplify because, large office transactions have many different complexities too. But generally speaking, if you look at the broad market, office leasing is in my mind a little simpler than you have to use all the real estate fundamentals doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we were never looked at like that, by the way. Cushman & Wakefield, we were affectionately known as, hey, bring in the store broker. I have a space to lease on the ground floor of the office.
Store broker.
That's store broker. Bring in the store broker. We were the store brokers.
Okay.
That's what we were. I did it with an accent.
Retail in the Bronx has been on fire for the past, a good few years now. I remember during COVID looking at the trades, and you saw a lot of retail transactions, and prices were even going up because the locals were staying there. They're spending the money locally. Supermarket business was doing very well. So it's definitely one of the most sought after asset classes in that market for sure.
Well, I'll tell you is if the grocery business is fundamentally what got RIPCO through COVID.
Really?
And our solid businesses throughout the suburban communities, Long Island, Westchester, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and the 4 other boroughs is what got us through this, terrible time of COVID, because the people did not flee like Manhattan.
Yeah.
So there was a demand. There was a demand for all kinds of space and services. And we were there to meet the demand because we knew the markets, we had the people, we had the customers. And we did quite a number of grocery deals throughout COVID as a company that drove our leasing base and drove some good revenue dollars during that difficult time. For me, fundamentally, it was grocery, which was really never my business model, that fundamentally pulled me out of COVID. It was the Wegmans deal at 770 Broadway at Astor Place. Peter and I represented Wegmans, and we did that lease in the former Kmart space. We did that during COVID. We first showed the space in a caravan of buses wearing masks and, with social distancing. It was horrible. And, but Wegmans was brave. And I was so honored to be involved in that deal. And that deal personally gave me hope about the future of what we're doing. And, Peter and I were awarded the Retail Deal of the Year award back in 2022 for that deal by the Real Estate Board of New York. And I'm very proud of it. So grocery pulled us out of that. And we were well positioned in the boroughs to execute. In the Bronx, the Bronx used to be, it was the hardest borough in the city of New York. And now I think it's one of the most active, dynamic, residential construction and, community-based communities.
Yeah, it's like
very solid.
It reminds me, do you remember we were at the RIPCO office? Was it not long after we joined? Everyone was getting so excited about Wegmans. And we were like, what's going on? Why is it such a big deal? Do you remember
It was a bit of a buzz, yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Every day,
I think
all we
another
heard was
another
Wegmans.
lease you guys did somewhere in the city. Maybe it was in the Upper West Side, actually. But
We did 2 Wegmans deals. Well,
Nice.
the second one was last year.
Nice.
Or it was early this year, actually.
Is that like getting that's like the real deal that you could get, like a big, are they national grocer like that, like a Whole Foods or a Wegmans? Is that what really gets leasing folks fired up when they hear like a tenant like that?
Yeah, listen, it could be from the work we do with, Club Pilates to doing a Louis Vuitton deal, right? A Target deal, everything in between. It's the ability to have a long-term relationship with a client and execute multiple transactions in any category, in any location. But it's the consistency of the client. I'd ask you guys about that recent deal, nice deal you guys did. And, you told me the story, like, hey, it's a long story. The people, it was about the people, right? You hung in there, you dug in there, you did it based upon relationships, but you got to come at some point with skills, right? You apply skills and relationships, like sort of where we started this conversation, you get it done.
Like on that, so if we could just like focus on canvassing for a second, right? Because I feel like we call it prospecting, and leasing, it seems to be a lot of canvassing. What does that mean when you say canvassing, and how does somebody say, I'm new to the business and it's my first year? How do you go out and canvass?
Well, I'm going to tell you my canvassing story because it is the most basic of canvassing stories. So I start July 17th, 1986. I'm 21 years old. My dad took me to like B. Altman, long gone department store, and bought me some summer suits, ties and suits, because that's what you wore, like these suits that would get all wrinkly, And I start in industrial real estate out of Long Island. I worked for this woman. Her name was Sharon Edison. First thing she does, she hands me a stack of 5x7 index cards that have the name of a tenant, a building address, and some lease information. And she says, you're going to go out to the Hauppauge Industrial Park, which at the time was one of the largest industrial parks in the country or on the East Coast, whatever it was, out at like exit 57 on the LIE. Go out to Hauppauge. You're going to start here on like Marcus Drive, whatever it was. And you're going to go building to building, and you're going to go validate this information, and don't come back until you're done. So I literally every day would wake up, I'd go out, and I'd go out to start at a particular building, and these buildings were 20,000 to 100,000 square foot industrial buildings on a few acres, and I walk from building to building. Guys, this is a true story. Okay. This is how everyone in this business starts, whether you're in an office building before there were digital directories and no security to doing industrial. So I would go up to these buildings, you walk in the office, and these are warehouses, and there's this little like office area, and there's a receptionist with like a sliding glass thing. And I would go up to them. I'd be sweating because it was August, and I'd be walking with my suit and tie. And I go, hi, my name is Gene Spiegelman. I'd like to speak to the person who handles your real estate responsibilities. 8 out of 10 times, the person or woman would look at the wall behind me and say, what's that say? No soliciting. And I'd be like, I'm not selling anything. I just want to speak to the person who handles your real estate responsibilities. 1 out of 10 times, someone would come out and talk to you. A lot of these businesses were entrepreneurial types businesses, different types of companies, and
They probably respected the hustle. Right?
they bring you into the office and they would say, kid, what's my building worth? How much? What can I lease it for? What can I sell it for? And the first time, I'm like, I never was like, I don't know. I was swift enough to say, let me think about it, or throw a number and get, either right, or typically wrong, or I'll get back to you, and I did that for months. That's canvassing. That's canvassing. That is basic starting canvassing. And it's a weed out activity. It's a weed. There were guys I know who did that, and after a day, they walked out of the job and never came back. It's like selling stocks. You picking up the phone. The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, picking up the phone, 1,000 times a day. Either going to do it or you're not going to do it. I did it. Guys who worked in Manhattan, and I say guys, I'm not saying girls, because frankly, there were very few girls in the business at that time. They walked up and down office buildings. There was no security in those days. There was only, they weren't digital directories. They had like boards where you had peg letters. They'd walk up and knock on offices, walk in offices, hand out flyers to space they were leasing. We did the same thing, but they were going vertical in buildings. That's canvassing. Now, fast forward all these years, canvassing is, it's the same theory with different practice. Email, solicitations, however you want to do it. But really, it's also getting out, going to conferences, meeting people, having dinners, shaking hands, getting to know people, engage in conversation. But sometimes it's just getting people on the phone today. Just getting them on the phone, catching up at their desk at 8 a.m, right? That's canvassing.
Yeah.
That's how you open up doors.
That's how you do it. When you're out canvassing, what are some telltale signs that a business is doing well or not doing well?
Stock, for our, in retail.
Yeah.
Inventory. What does the store look like? Is it well merchandised or not? Is the merchandise well presented or not? What's the sales staff like? Engaging or not? What's the store look like? Clean, run down? Is there, did they clean up from the night before? Is it well maintained? Is the door operating the right way? Is it hot? It's all those things to determine how a business is operating. And, you could tell, particularly if you walk into, and I'm not going to go to luxury because say luxury is a different category, but, walk into and back in the day, say if you go into a Zara store today and you look at the fit and finish of a fashion retailer, right? And then you go to a mall and look at a tired Forever 21 store. You see the difference in every aspect of the business. You could tell what's doing better, right? But it's very indicative of inventory levels, how well merchandise is a store. That is the time. And if you repetitively go into stores, you could see what turns. In the pharmacy business back in the day, the pharmacy experts would go in and they would look at the pharmacy counters and they'd be able to look at all the prescriptions stocked going out the door on the shelves. And they knew by the level of, how many individual prescriptions up there, what was the business activity in that particular pharmacy location. So I think every retail category has different metrics.
Interesting.
And do you still go out with clickers, like counting foot traffic? Is that still a thing, or was that ever a thing? Where people like stand on the corner of like an avenue and they're like, just click how many people walk past?
100% that was thing. That's not a thing anymore. We've advanced to, technology. I'm going to teach you guys. Yeah, I know
GIS mapping. GIS mapping now.
Geofencing. Cell phone technology. Place AI. But no, in all kidding aside, I would say up until 2008, they were still using tickers. Yeah. And then they developed these technologies that would, through like laser technology, be able to count passerbys in front of particular locations. So they put like sort of digital laser counters, and also over the threshold, how many customers will go over the threshold. There was always a question about someone reverses back over the threshold, or you double count. It was actually no one ever answered it clearly, but they did go to digital. But that was like short lived, maybe for a period of 6 to 10 years, the digital laser counters. And then really what came in was it all happened with the invention of the iPhone, Steve Jobs' brilliance. And then, everyone's walking around with a coded device. So everyone knows where everyone is at all times. And the geofencing data that particularly Placer has commercialized is really now I guess the benchmark,
The gold standard of
the
how you
gold
do it.
standard
Right.
for.
Right.
You still have to interpret data. You can't just look at it and it's give you. You have to interpret results.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like we had Bob Knackle on a recent episode, and he was talking about the importance of owning your own data or creating your own data sets, because like he has a thing called a map room where he literally went out during COVID and walked like every block below 96th Street and taped together this map for every development or every potential development site in New York City. And now he's got this like proprietary information that nobody else has, because you can't get it from online sources or from trying to like track different maps. But I got to imagine in retail, that kind of tracking is key as well, right? And being intimately aware with the blocks and the buildings and.
Oh, you got to know your inventory, right? You got to know what you're selling. You're selling number 2 pencils or you're selling big pens.
Right.
You got to know your inventory. But let's talk about maps for a second.
Yeah.
If you ever get Peter RIPCO on the show here, I think Peter will claim to be the original mapper, because you asked Peter about his Hagster maps and all the Hagster maps, and I literally still think they have them somewhere stored out in Long Island. The Hagster maps that they used to use, because before there was any digital technology, used those folded up maps, which is those maps that Bob uses expanded on his walls. But it was Hagster maps, and they used to use pins and they used to use stickies and other things to do competitive, the same stuff we do digitally, they were doing in paper on Hagster maps. And I think Peter, who's a very manual, artsy guy, probably had the biggest map collection, and they love to talk about his Hagster maps. Talk to Peter
It's
about
funny. It's just it's a certain type of brain that like really loves that type of intel.
So talk to Peter.
Peter
about the
RIPCO.
maps.
We'll ask Peter RIPCO about that. Yeah.
Now about blocks and lots, section blocks and lots. You guys come into my office on Monday, and I'll show you my land book. I am the only person in the office who has the traditional New York City land book. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Like Sanborn maps.
The Sanborn maps. I have the book. It's in my office.
I will.
But you open it up, and you could see every block in the city of New York with every section, lot, and block, and who owns it. Now, it's dated, and there's been lot merges and obviously a lot of sales since then. I keep it, and I reference it now and again. You could go online and look at it. I just pull the thing out I put it on, and I look at the block and the lots. Because for the most part, they're the same, not in many situations, but it's invaluable to understand that real estate is that physical element. And, when I go to my alma mater, University of Maryland, and I've had the privilege to lecture there to their real estate programs. And, particularly the young folks believe they could do this all with digital technology, right? You could focus on Google Earth and do it. And I would say, listen, you get a good sense of street view and other things. It's definitely supplementary to help you, like in that initial sense of speeding up a process. But how do you know if that property is wet or dry? How do you know if that property smells or not? How do you know if there's noise or other conditions that you will not tell from Google Earth? You have to go to the property. So there's no substitute for those basic skill sets of understanding what is a map. So I love the idea of Bob's map room and all that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. What about in the who are you calling? Like, are you calling the landlords or are you calling the tenants? Like, what's the best way of doing it? Or is there a specific preference?
Well, for me, my success in retail real estate brokerage or real estate brokerage in general was based upon learning the hard way that you have to have one element of control. That being a promotional broker and just trying to be in the middle and put two things together is not a way to have a business. Now, you can make deals occasionally promotionally by bringing parties together, but you either have to have control of the real estate as an exclusive leasing agent or an exclusive sales agent, or you have to have a in our business, be a tenant rep and exclusively represent a retailer. But you have to come from a point of control in one of those. So I run what I'll call a 50-50 business, that I try to have a blend of always have 50% of my business is representing landlords, 50% representing tenants. So I will divide, sort of my business strategy into canvassing both. Now, I have some very specific, particularly on the leasing side or the agency side of the business, areas that I focus on. I like to say the spine of Manhattan, Broadway from the Battery up to, Harlem. Like, I focus on Broadway, focus on the Upper East Side, the prime areas, Upper West Side, Fifth Avenue, Soho, Chelsea. I work with specialty retailers. I work with the contemporary fashion community. I work with luxury retailers. And I've done it globally. I've done it around the U.S. I've done it on all the U.S. urban high streets and in the top, enclosed malls around the country and lifestyle centers. So it's whether it was Levi Strauss or Calvin Klein or Crate and Barrel or Lacoste or Carolina Herrera or, Equinox Fitness Clubs. I've worked with these brands and others. And when you spend time, it all is a similar type of co-tenancy that you're working with. So you learn these markets and then you canvas them and you create your strategy of like who you're speaking to.
Because one piece of information will be relevant maybe to 3 or 4 of those groups.
Absolutely.
And you can recycle your data and your info.
Yeah. And one piece of information leads to something else. And, you just hear something and being clever and being creative, like, oh, what can I do with that information?
Because I got to imagine for a landlord, it's important for them what broker has each retailer, right? Because they want to know that they're dealing with the Crate and Barrel guy.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have to be able, to your point about having like a holistic business, you're getting both landlord and tenants. If you have all of one, if you only have landlords, right, they're going to be like, well, we need retailers, right? And if you only have retailers, you're not controlling the space either.
You're not. Listen, some brokers take, very specific, they're just tenant brokers, or some are just, landlord agents. I think balance is important because it allows you to have a very good sense of both sides of the deal-making equation. What do landlords want, what a tenant needs, and it also informs you about, market conditions. Oh. Very much so, particularly working on the landlord side of the business. What are the deals like? Having a very good sense of inventory. What is the competitive set? And you also might get early information on when a space is coming available. Many deals we do are not necessarily spaces that are listed. We'll get ahead of something and learn that tenant's not going to renew and get in there early, either to get the agency to lease it or bring a tenant to the space.
Inside baseball.
And inside baseball. And by the way, we're at a market, I think, from fundamentals in Manhattan, that in retail leasing, we're approaching equilibrium. We have not been in equilibrium in 12 years. I'd say 2011, 12 was almost an equilibrium market. Then we started to really accelerate. Pricing got way ahead of demand up until the retail apocalypse, which was pre-COVID. That was the narrative before that. So I think we're in an equilibrium phase. There's still some soft spots. Generally speaking, supply and demand is at a balance. But I do see going into 2025 is that demand's going to outstrip supply, particularly for the prime markets. So you're going to see, I think, pricing increases and tough to find space. So inside baseball and getting ahead of it, particularly now if you're representing a tenant, you want to be there. It's a great time to be a landlord agent for prime space.
What's driving that?
So we spoke about supermarkets. Are there any other retailers that are hot right now?
Listen, food and beverage of all stripes, categories, from Starbucks and Chipotle's to Daniel Boulud. It's food and beverage is 35% of all leasing in the city, and during COVID it was higher, it's by 40+%. But it's a very high. So all food and beverage categories, coffee shops, quick serve, fast casual.
Is that unique to New York? Because people in New York generally, and particularly Manhattan, they tend to go out and eat a lot. They go grab food. Is that unique to that market?
I think it's about grabbing food, but I think it's really about experience.
Yeah, experiential. Yeah.
It's experiential. Like, I'm on the phone with a broker this morning. Oh, we had such a good dinner. You've been to the RH guest house?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been to RH guest house yet. I've been to the gallery, but so it's always like, oh, it was really great, interesting. the food doesn't always have to be great. It's about the experience. But other categories, contemporary fashion is a huge part of our business. And that's the Lululemons, the Outlaws, the Club Monacos, and today even Old Navy, Banana Republic Gap. Everyone is out there. We did a deal for a company called Urban Revivo from Guangzhou, China. First store in the United States, 515 Broadway. We're very proud to launch a contemporary fashion brand, fast fashion brand in the U.S. The Zara, the H&M's, all those. And then, whether it's accessories or whether it's luxury or jewelry or footwear, all these categories, home, they all have some, what we like to say, open to buy. And that's what's driving it. But what's really driving our business, it's macroeconomic fundamentals of consumer spending. And you saw the numbers just came out. They went up this month. They went up last month. Sub 1% increases month over month. Consumer spending is 2/3 of gross domestic product. If consumers are spending and they have confidence, retailers are retailing.
Yeah.
And that's it. Consumers fall back. We have not hit a recession. They said recession. Consumers are very resilient. They've been resilient through inflation and through interest rate hikes. Resilient, not always happy. It's been difficult depending on your economic status, but people spend. And if they continue to spend, retailers will continue to open stores. And the final point of that is retailers, one silver lining in COVID, it killed the retail apocalypse narrative. And the retailers who couldn't survive closed stores by the thousands. And there's still retailers failing every day, but with more stores opening than closing at this point. But retailers learned how to integrate their e-com businesses and their brick and mortar businesses to have a successful omni-channel, multi-channel business. And that's why retailers, they're not struggling with that mix anymore. They know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I've learned from observing retail in New York City, just by being observer of it, is that whether it's a new restaurant or the clothing store, people really go for it, don't they? We were saying this the other day about particularly restaurants. Everyone wants to be where everyone else wants to be, and it seems like they monetize that and they do really well for a few years. And there's a cycle, and then something else comes along. So that, I suppose, the real estate business can be a bit cyclical.
I can't speak enough about the hot restaurants.
Yeah,
celebrity shows up. I can't even keep track.
I know.
I have to get to Fort Charles. I've not had the Fort Charles burger yet. And what's the place that it just up? The Corner? Is it the Corner that just opened up where I don't know? Gigi Hadid was there with Taylor Swift. And I don't know which, but yeah, 100%. It drives it. 100. What do you do on the weekend? What do? You go out and you eat. You might shop, play with your kids, do whatever you do, but you're like, where are we eating? And you go, and inevitably you're gonna be waiting online somewhere, right? You're waiting online. And by the way, Resi, Open Table, the whole reservation game now is a game. They're making money on reservations. You got to put $50 down a person, no show, lost fees. But it eliminated people holding reservations. But now it's like a sport to go out and get that reservation.
Is it so? I noticed that a lot of retail or leasing brokers are trendy, or they're into where's the hottest restaurant, or what's the nicest pair of shoes, or when you're from a certain generation, right? Do you find that keeps you young, that you're constantly tracking what's new, what's hip, what's trendy, or do you feel like that's not even a part of it for you?
No, I think it's a part of it. I think in one sense, you act your age, but you certainly want to understand what's on trend, and your own personal, style is your own personal style, right? I'm not going to go around and try to look like a 20-year-old, but I'm not going to go wear a Burberry trench coat, on a sunny day either, right? So I think you adjust with the times, but it's if you're in retail, you definitely have a sense of product and merchandise and what to shop or what to buy, because it interests you.
Yeah.
If it doesn't interest you, it doesn't interest you. Listen, if you're an IB guy on Park Avenue, you're in a quarter zip and a vest, right? You're like a Peter Millar, catalog guy, Yeah, everyone sort of fits there.
You end up representing your
Yeah.
niche.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure Bob came in here in a suit and tie. You know,
We were surprised he wasn't actually.
Shocked. And it was the most stressed up I was all week. And it was because Bob Knackle was on. And it was
You know,
just.
I went to I did I was invited to do a panel at the Appraisal Institute for their annual meeting at the club 101 Park Club, whatever it is, last week, and 350, 400 people. I was on a panel, and I wore a suit and tie. Like, why not?
Yeah.
You know, why
It feels
not
good
show
sometimes.
up, wear a suit and tie.
Yeah,
It's
it feels
easy.
good. Yeah.
I actually felt really good wearing it. You know, so. But yeah, you definitely want. I got my on sneakers. You know.
Yeah, you're a pretty cool looking guy. I gotta say.
I got my ankles showing. You know. You know,
Brian, you usually do that.
I usually, but it's getting cold out there.
It
man.
was so not today.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. As
it's
cool as I
very warm.
wanted to be, I couldn't hack it.
You know, it's harder to dress now professionally because up until COVID, you pretty much had one way to dress. You wore a suit. Your choice was
It was
It's
easier.
really
with,
yeah, it's
without
really
a
changed
tie
now.
or
Yeah,
with a
blue
tie.
tie,
Yeah,
red tie.
Right, blue. I just
black
wore
tie.
white shirts
Same.
and blue shirts, white blue suit, gray suit.
Brown
and
shoes.
I only wore Johnson and Murphy shoes.
Yeah.
Not Johnson and Murphy. Allen Edmonds.
Even
I
better.
wore Allen Edmonds shoes, and I wore Hermes ties. That's it.
I kind of miss it.
I
Yeah.
got my wife would buy me a new Hermes tie on every occasion. And
There you go.
Sorry.
That's what I had. And I have a beautiful collection of Hermes ties.
Yeah.
I wore one the other day.
Now they're like
But,
artifacts.
You know,
Yeah.
and now it's like I always hated, like, you guys weren't even born yet when we had the .com boom in the late 90s, and it was the first dress down experience at work, and guys would come in with they didn't make business casual clothing. Guys would wear khakis. Khakis to me are the absolute worst fitting clothing known to man. Hate them. Hate them. Like, I'll never wear khakis.
No.
Guys would come in and they're sloppy and baggy and like wearing terrible loafers and disasters.
Yeah.
And then we had the .com blow up in like 2000, and everyone went back to suits. And they were really happy. Then around 2009, 10, after that last recession, guys stopped wearing ties. I had enough of the ties. I wear the suit, no ties.
Where are we going to be
anymore.
at in 10 years' time?
I think
Topless.
Shorts,
Yeah, topless.
tank tops.
I like. I think there's a discipline to getting dressed up.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
not
agree.
being,
Let me ask you a question. Would you hire somebody, because Mitch and me are going through this at the moment, right? We're trying to hire folks. Some folks, and I don't know the answer to this, some folks show up with no tie. Some folks show up with a tie. Some folks show up wearing just what they wore to the gym. And it's kind of like you respect them for being that ballsy, but at the same time, it's still like, at some point you have to like put your best foot forward here. And if I think you're sloppy, I think an owner or someone who might hire you for business might think you're sloppy. And it's like, at least like for that part, you should put your best foot forward.
Sloppy is never acceptable in my book, particularly if you're in the interview process, whether you're interviewing for a job or you're interviewing for business. Come appropriate. Don't come to a gunfight with a knife, right? It's like, be prepared to interact in the proper environment. What we did learn with retail is over time is clients did not like us showing up in suit and ties. They did not like us. They didn't like us coming out to LA in a suit and a tie. They thought we were the lawyers.
Yeah.
We look like the lawyers, and they don't like that. They don't want you to look like a lawyer. So they would be more comfortable to where they were coming to work, right? And by the way, when you're working with brands, a lot of people with brands are wearing their clothing,
Yeah.
That's
right? So
what I was thinking.
you don't want to what's the word for it? You don't want to patronize and
right.
look
Be
stupid,
too kind of obvious that you're.
but don't come into a Lacoste meeting wearing a Ralph Lauren shirt.
You're right. These are subtleties that
Don't
are.
be dumb.
Yeah.
So, So there's a whole. Ralph Lauren's one of my clients too. It's like a whole, and I always was very conscious of that. Like, there's a dynamic to it.
Yeah.
But never sloppy.
Never
It's
stop.
the same thing.
And
in our
I
business.
shave every day to work.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever carried the
The stubble.
the stubble
bald
well.
beard.
And even when I was young, but it was just always, I shave every day. I don't, it's not, that's me.
That's
the way I
our
am.
old mentor, Paul Massey. You know,
Yeah,
be
yeah.
like the Yankees, just shave and
Yeah.
You
look
know,
the part.
That's some guys look great
Yeah.
with 2-day stuff,
Yeah.
But I don't like scraggly. Like I like, what's the matter with you?
You got to do what works for you.
It's the same thing in our business in terms of like, you got to know who you're meeting with. Like when we meet these owners in the Bronx and industrial building and Hunters Point, if you go there in a suit and a tie, you just don't fit in. You're going to be like smart casual, like chinos and a shirt. And
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to think maybe they're paying you too much money as well. You've got to be on their level.
And they feel a disconnect from you. Like
Yeah.
you
I'm
don't
wearing a Brioni suit.
Right. Yeah, like you don't need to have concrete on your boots when you're walking around, but I think you do need to look like you work for a living, right? And like in something that they recognize as work, because a lot of the time, being on Madison Avenue or wearing a tie, they might necessarily relate to that too well.
Exactly.
I sort of like the season we're going into because I like wearing outerwear. I like wearing jackets because first of all, jackets have pockets, so I have my stuff, pen, wallet, AirPods, phone, whatever you got.
Right.
And during the summer months, if I don't want to carry something with me, because I don't want to carry things with me, I got no pockets during the summer. You got your pants and you got stuff sticking out and and unfortunately in the city of New York today, I will not walk around with a wallet or a phone in my back pocket.
Right.
You can't do it.
Right.
You can't. And
just keep your New York Post in there.
You keep the post.
You can roll it in there.
Did you see my post on my desk yesterday?
Gotta love the Post.
Right today, I start from the Hebrew Bible. I start at the back and go the other way. I start with the sports and work.
The most fun paper in New York for sure.
The Post and go the sports and go the other way.
So that's it. So we hit a lot on canvassing. Business wise, I know coming from Cushman, you had a great run. And a great company. What attracted you to come over to RIPCO, to a more privately held firm?
So first of all, it was my long-term relationship with Peter Ripken and Todd Cooper, and my respect for their business. And the Peter and I had done many deals together through the years. We always had a very nice relationship. I had spent the majority of my career at that point in corporate real estate per se. I was with the Edward S. Gordon Company. Then I had my own thing for 2 years that I sold to Cushman, and I spent 18 years at Cushman. So I like to say a suit and tie guy. And I think I did everything I could at Cushman & Wakefield. I was a successful producer. I helped build a business. I ran the business. And then I did a lot of travel. And I didn't want to travel anymore at that point because my kids were at a time it was time to be home for them.
Right.
They were going into, getting into high school years and wanted to be around. And I wanted to localize my business. And also, they provided me the opportunity to grow another business, which you guys are the product of that, to grow a business and to be part of growing another business entity. And I was very excited about that. And also, we do different things at RIPCO. It's much easier at RIPCO to be engaged in retail leasing, to sell property. We don't put up boundaries. We keep it very flexible. We got a great network of people. We have a very strong business throughout the New York metropolitan region. And it was strong when I started. It's super strong now. And I've loved being involved in the growth of the business. And it was new tools to work with. And I also was ready for a little more relaxed atmosphere and how I was working. And it actually, I think when COVID came, it was well positioned because just the nature of our business, and I didn't have to deal with the corporate infrastructure to figure out how to went to work. I went to the Jericho office and put a mask on, there were things about it that just helped, and we all collaborated. But from a business perspective, I knew we were developing an open platform. We were going to expand that platform, which we successfully did, to debt, equity, investment, sales. And basically it's like, if you want to be good at something, just go be good at it. We don't have boundaries around that. And I enjoyed that from my own perspective. And I think the people who come to RIPCO enjoy that. So I think it was the freedom to be free. Now, when I was at Cushman, there were limitations. I happened to be very successful doing industrial leasing at Cushman Wakefield. I was an early adopter of that business. I found some partners on that side, and retailers were always into industrial real estate. So I was very successful at jumping that bridge, making
that makes
that
sense.
bridge.
Okay.
But however, selling property at Cushman was impossible. The investment sales brokers were very proprietary about their business.
Territorial?
Very territorial.
I can imagine.
Very
Can't believe that.
territorial. And it was always that way. They didn't want you in their business.
No.
They didn't want you to bring them deals. They didn't want you in the business. And if you brought in, they're like, we'll give you 5%, or they wouldn't pay attention to you. But you could not go do it yourself. And it was always a fight. And I never liked that.
Yeah.
And I knew that at that point I wanted to do more. And I'm involved in investment sales. And finally, we are investors too, right? We have the opportunity to invest in real estate deals and to pursue deals and to, develop your own private wealth in that perspective. And it's very hard to do that in the corporate environment. And it was time in my career to execute that. And finally, I always liked the people.
I think me and Brian have found RIPCO very liberating, in terms of your point where Cushman, you had to watch your back a little bit. I think we believe in the value add system that RIPCO has. So, if you feel like the right guy's going to add value to the transaction, bring them in. And it's just going to create an environment where we're all doing more deals together.
You chuckle about the Cushman thing, right? You were there, but right?
I wasn't at Cushman.
No, I wasn't at Cushman. No, we were
No.
B6, yeah.
Oh, so you never
never
made
experienced
it in
it,
with
yeah.
you weren't in the Massey.
No,
No.
we weren't part of the MK. So I got into the business in 2016, went to Marcus Millichap.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you
That was my institution.
You aren't there, right?
Yeah.
So just this last piece about this. So when Paul and Bob, that's how I met Paul and Bob, because I was responsible for when I was running the retail services, I had to do the retail integration of their business at the back end of 2014 when we acquired them. So they come in with this large format investment sales business, made it more egalitarian at that point. But before that, the folks who were there before that, before Doug and Adam came, there were other folks, and I like some of them, maybe nameless, but these were the territorial years.
Yeah.
And they had a great business. They just didn't want you part of it.
Yeah.
So and it was, I did do deals. We did sell property, but it was far and in between.
Right. Yeah.
Could have done a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly, I think the entrepreneurial spirit at RIPCO is definitely alive and well. You seem like you have I didn't know you beforehand, but there definitely seems to be a passion and energy there for the business at RIPCO and growing out that platform. It's a super exciting place to be right now. It seems like we're adding business lines. We're doing it the right way. I feel like there's no business we can't win when we go for it. I think that's one of the advantages of having a brand that has grown organically, I would say, for 30 to 40 years behind Peter and Todd. So being able to use that as a platform, but also being nimble enough, there's really no red tape, right? If we're going after business and we want the business, we can get the business, which is nice.
That's what I'd say. We don't have red tape. I think in many ways we could do better in our business development. I think that it takes time, but we can pursue bigger things and we'll be competitive at different levels. But generally speaking, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished.
Yeah, you should be, for sure. In terms of life outside the business, any fun hobbies that you like to get into, or any?
Absolutely. My two things I like to do the best is, I did a lot of skiing during the winter months, and I always felt it was a family activity, and I always loved it. Things that bring you and the kids together, your family together. And during the summer, I'm a boater, so I love going out on my boat with my family. I've done that for my whole life, and those are the two things that I'm really passionate about, particularly boating. I love going out on boats. And, besides that, I'll say I work a lot, and I have other hobbies that I like to engage in. I'm a firearm enthusiast, though. I always,
There's something we didn't know.
Guns and ammo.
Nice.
Yeah,
always
there
a
you
thing
go.
of mine. I grew up around people who, a lot of military people in my life and family, and growing up in that environment. So I enjoy shooting and stuff like that too, and that carries you through different months. And I'm an outing golfer. I always say, you play golf. I'm an outing golfer. I just go to outings and play
I'm the
golf,
same, yeah.
and have fun. Otherwise, I'm not a golfer. That's what I do, and I hang with my kids.
That skiing reminds me, when we joined RIPCO, I think you were going off to Vale, and just see you later, guys, going off to Vale, and Brian was like, I want to be like Gene.
Yeah. Two of my friends moved out there during COVID.
Yeah, it's quite the spot I hear.
And
Yeah.
I go out there. I've skied with my high school friends. Got to be 20 plus years now, Super Bowl weekend. It was our weekend. We would get together Super Bowl weekend, go skiing and out west in different places. And, with the other guys in Vail, we go out there now.
You
Good
seem
stuff.
to have created a nice balance in your life, which is obviously, I know it took time, and I'm sure you didn't have balance for a lot of part of your life to make it possible now. But I still notice your team, like Jeff Rosbash or like Morgan Singer, like those guys are killers. Like they're in early, they stay late. How do you I feel like building a team is obviously a hard thing to do, but you seem to keep everybody inspired and keep everybody on the mission.
Well, I was out of balance for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was part of why I left Cushman. I from the day I started, I just put blinders on, and I had my wife, my spouse, my girlfriend. She's my best friend. She helped me through every part of life and saying, I'm going to be there for you. Cause I used to leave the house at 6:53 in the morning and get home at 9 at night, always. Or I traveled 80 days a year at the most. I was like,
Oof.
and I was not around. I had this thing I would tell people. I said, kids are paperweights when they were young. Where you leave them is where you find them. That's a little cold, but you sort of like have to have a mentality. And then I made a conscious decision, which is partially why I left Cushman. Was like, I want to be more local. I don't want to do that travel anymore because I want to be around. But, I really dedicated the majority of my time towards my professional career, and it was my choice to do it. And I think those who are successful make these decisions. Very important to make life-work balance. And that was not a concept for like mentorship. When I graduated college was not a concept. No one said, oh, find a mentor. I don't think it was in the dictionary. No one said that. And they never said anything about what life-work balance either.
Right.
They just said, come to work.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about
We've
vacation.
probably got a bit softer over the years.
Maybe.
So,
yeah.
but that's it. And I think today I respect life-work balance. That's why I build a team. I've always had teams because teams allow someone to go on vacation but have coverage with people you trust, so you can have life-work balance. That's very important. And over time I did work it, but that's whether it's Jeff or Morgan or Doug or anyone's team. At some point you're going to say, hey, I'm going skiing. Can you take care of this?
Right.
But I got to tell you, no matter where I was, whether I was in Asia, Europe, here, I was on that phone, or I was doing emails at stupid hours because I would not let the client think, just because I went away, the client should not suffer. Plus I was always so scared of losing business. I'm like, you better be there, because if you're not there, someone else will be there.
FOMO.
That's so true.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But I can relate to your point in terms of your wife supporting you. My wife's been great to me, and I'm sure Ash has been the same for you. Like you really need that stability to help you get out to work and do your thing all day.
Call you out.
Yeah,
for sure. But listen, in closing, I mean, it seems like there's some exciting years ahead, and it seems like you've no plans to slow down, which is great to see. We're so happy to get to work alongside you, and we look forward to hopefully growing RIPCO together.
Well, thank you for inviting me today to participate. I think this is great. Thank you for the Don Julio. That was very, very nice.
You're
for
very
a
welcome.
Friday afternoon. We really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the conversation. I have no plans to slow down. I just only do things more efficiently and do the things that I like to do. And I do feel that, and I said this to the team this time last year, that I felt coming out of 23, I saw the momentum that I had not seen for a number of years. And the deal cycle and the flow turned out to meet my expectations in our industry and personally. And I see that same consistency from 24 into 25. And, if you look at the geopolitical situation, the election and all these things, in a sense, you have to be sympathetic and empathetic and understanding of a lot goes on, but you also have to have blinders on and keep going, like a going concern principle. I feel that same momentum going into 25. I view it all as very fragile. You could break the egg very easily, but I do like what I see and what I feel. So I wish you guys success in the coming year as well.
Gene
Thank you, Gene.
Spiegelman.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.